The Hunter Classics Halloween event recently concluded, and I figured that I would compile my thoughts on the event. Sure, I haven't been playing as long as some people, but hey, I might as well put my thoughts out there anyway. I'm Darkrio, and welcome to an Idiot's Review. My favorite part of the event has to have been the new skins that were added. My favorite by far is the reptile werewolf. The thing just looks absolutely amazing, and I've taken to calling this particular one that I have in my lodge Killer Croc. Next up on the list is the mummified whitetail. Although it is the most basic out of the skins, it looks pretty nice, and they were a bit accurate on it too. Underneath the bandages, you can see that the whitetail's skin has turned purple, which is the process of post-mortem hypostasis, where skin turns anywhere from pink to dark purple after death. On top of this, we even have a non-typical of it, and it looks absolutely stunning. Thanks to Dip301822 for letting me use this picture of his non-typical. Next up is the feral hog. The patterns all over the hog look beautiful, and the little splashes of blood across the hog, along with the veins running down its side, really bring the whole thing together. Not much more for me to say on this guy, but since the skin isn't as new as the rest, I don't really want to spend too much time on it. This didn't really come up until now, but as you can see in the background, since I am doing this over footage of me playing the event, there will be moments where I'm completely silent and where you can just enjoy the hunt. Or just laugh at me for missing shots like I did there. Next up on the animals that I taxed is the cottontail. These little rats look pretty neat, as annoying as they are to actually hunt. The mostly black design does make it difficult to shoot them while they charge us, but hey, at least they weren't always in groups like the European rabbits last year were, right? One of the only two animals that I didn't tax during the event were the turkeys. The other one was the bear. But the turkeys were supposed to look like pumpkins, and honestly they looked too similar to one of the April Fool's skins that the turkeys had earlier this year. They weren't really that special, and I didn't care enough to go after any after I did the mission. Overall, they just weren't very interesting to me, and I feel a lot of people feel the same way. I don't have evidence of this, but I didn't see many people posting the turkeys that they killed around the community, so I can only assume that not many turkeys even got killed. I feel a big part of that is the fact that turkeys just come into their calls very slowly, and they don't pay out that well. So if you have the choice between running around going after werewolves and hogs, or laying in one spot waiting for a turkey to slowly approach you, which one are you gonna go for? While we're on the topic of the animals that I did not tax, let's just talk about the other one, the bear. I just didn't find a decent one to tax because you couldn't really come across them that well. I expected them to charge us like the werewolves and hogs did, but they would only do so if you cornered them. Despite this, the skin that they came with absolutely looked amazing. They were missing their fur and flesh, and you could see their muscles and other goriness underneath, I guess. At least it wasn't completely visceral, but it was creepy to see. And if they would charge you every single time you were sprinting near them, the event probably would have been absolutely terrifying. They were by far the creepiest skin that was added during the event. All that we have left to talk about to do with the skins are the bobcat and the elk. The bobcat was a sort of cyborg cat. Actually, it was literally just a cyborg cat. It had a bit of blood around the metal bits that was supposed to be replacing the bobcat's missing flesh and limbs. But it wasn't really creepy. Of course, it doesn't have to be creepy, but creepiness does go a long way during a Halloween event. The most notable part about the bobcat to talk about is the fact that, like the turkeys, it would come into calls slowly. At least for the bobcat, you wouldn't have to use an annoying as hell caller the entire time and could just lay in wait with your gun out ready to shoot as soon as you see it. But it would still come in slowly. This isn't as much of a downside for the bobcat, though, because it would be worth 10 of the bat dollars for the event, while turkeys would only be worth 5. So that little bit of extra currency towards the bobcats kind of helps it a little bit more. As well as the fact that they paid out more GMs as well. You could get upwards of around, I think, 240 GMs if you got a good bobcat. Lastly to talk about is the elk. Honestly, I've been thinking of what I should say about it for about an hour now, and I can't really think of that much. It looks nice. I like how it looks, but there's no real in-depth thoughts that I can really give the elk itself. I can say that hunting them was about the same as a whitetail. Took a while for them to come in, and they wouldn't charge you, but at least the elk would call back or have a chance to call back whenever you would use the collar for them. So those are my thoughts on these skins and a bit of in-depth thoughts on the animals and how I thought about hunting them. The event as a whole was very enjoyable. The map wasn't the best choice possible. there were a lot of times where animals would get stuck on trees or run into water while they were charging at you. And if they got stuck on a tree, they would just continuously run in place. If they ran into water while charging you, they would immediately start fleeing. So having the map have water around it was kind of a downside for the event as a whole, because that meant at times animals would flee from you while charging you and you'd never find them again through no real fault of your own. However, despite this, the map was enjoyable during the event. Yes, werewolves and hogs getting stuck on trees was annoying, and rabbits were an absolute nightmare to deal with in the meadows, but if you stuck to the roads, most of the time you'd be fine. The rabbits were definitely the hardest to hit, but that's by design. As for the animals that couldn't charge us, I've already sort of talked about the elk and whitetail, so I'll focus on the bobcats, bears, and turkeys right now. The bobcats couldn't really sense us very well. In fact, the senses really sucked, which was actually a really nice thing. Dealing with tracking a bobcat with its usual senses of sight, smell, and hearing would have been absolute hell with the fog that was during the event. With how slowly they came into collars, it was nice when I would just be sprinting down the road and just see a bobcat standing there completely unaware about me. Same with the elk and whitetail to a certain extent. They could hear a bit better than the bobcat and might have been able to see well, too. I'm not really sure. Either way, these three weren't as hard as the turkeys or bears were. Like I mentioned with the turkeys, they took forever to come into calls. And for the bears, I only saw 2 or 3 during the entire event. I admit my barrel might not have been in a very good spot for it, but still, they could sense us really well. You'd never run up on a bear on the road like you would the bobcats. Maybe you would find the track, but never the bear itself unless you got lucky or it got stuck on a tree. And I've already said for the turkeys, they come into calls so slowly. I only had the callers for the mission objective. Even then, a friend helped me get the objective done. As I said before, if you have the choice between laying there waiting for a bird to come into the call or running around having rushes of adrenaline as you're charged by werewolves and hogs, what will you pick? Overall, the event was absolutely great. And I managed to not let the few issues that I did have with certain animals get to me as I played. And I hope that next year they can possibly surpass the event's quality, whichever map they decide to put the event on. Personally, I'm hoping it's put on Whiterime. What about all of you? Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more, then like and subscribe. I am much more active on my Twitch if you want to interact with me, and I have a Discord as well. Links to these are in the description. Now, I'm going to go into YouTuber hibernation and await the next event. Have a nice day, everyone, and hope to see you all next time.